Welcome to today's broadcast of Sun, Salt, and Light. Sun, Salt, and Light, S-O-N, knowing and growing in your daily relationship with Jesus Christ, but also being the salt and the light in your marriage, in your family, at your place of work, at your church, and even in the community you're in. I'm Pastor Michael Petit. This is a radio ministry of our church, Calvary Chapel Devine, here in Devine, Texas. We are so glad that you joined us for today's broadcast. We are a Calvary Chapel, so we simply teach the Bible verse by verse, chapter by chapter. We believe that God uses His Word to transform, restore, and to change lives one verse at a time. If you're visiting our area, you'd like to get information about our church or church service times, maybe even track down some of the other teachings that we have available through podcast, whether it's through Audible or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can do all of that at our church website at calvarydevine.org. That's calvarydevine.org. As we continue our summer series, we are in chapter 2. So we're going through the book W. Philip Keller, A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. And tonight we will be dealing with I shall not want. I shall not want. Last week we kind of looked at the Lord is, and one of the things I wish I would have told y'all and I forgot to tell you is that when you look at the Lord is, it means that the Lord is shepherding me. Right? He is shepherding me. So is the Lord shepherding you, meaning that you're following Him. And so it's the verb that's used there means that the Lord is shepherding. The Lord is shepherding. So if He is your shepherd, then He is shepherding you. And you need to be obedient and follow Him. But now He says, I shall not want. Now Jesus talks about this in Matthew chapter 6, verses 31 through 34. It says, therefore do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For after all these things the Gentiles seek, for your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. See, Jesus is talking here is very simply is that the basic needs of your life are taken care of by Him. And I don't think we see it in that capacity. We can lose perspective of that or lack the perspective that Jesus is taking care of the essentials for you. Roof over your head. You know, even though you may not have water's still showing up from others. You know, God still provides those basic needs. The other two, as He's saying in this verse, is that you need to stop with the unnecessary worry, which we all do, if we're honest. When things start happening, things start going wrong, what do? We worry. It's part of it. And that's why He says with the birds, you know, when He looks at that, the birds and the lilies of the field, and as you look at that verse, up above it, it talks about that, and it talks about, you know, that they're not cultivating crops. The birds are taken care of, even in this heat. My birds were still fighting in the tree this morning. They ain't worried about nothing. I was like, they're fighting in the tree, and it's 100 and something degrees outside. But God is still providing them shade and taking care of them. The other thing is worry is pointless. It's like a rocking chair. We've talked about that before. Worry is a rocking chair. You're moving back and forth, but you're not going anywhere. And four, it shows a lack of faith. You need to trust God. And he talks about the Gentiles. That's what the Gentiles do. So he's basically saying, hey, that's what the unbeliever does. The unbeliever worries. So again, if we harp back onto those attributes of God, when you're worrying, that's what you should look at. He's all-knowing. Well, He knows our need. He knows what's happening next week, and it's like Miss Donna was saying that, just the CPS raised all the rates up. God will provide. God is able to provide. It's we just have to trust Him, and at the end of the day, it's like when we're worrying again, we're doing no different than what the world does. So what do you do when worry hits? When you have a want, or you have a worry that's there, you should do what? Pray. Again, what do? We adore God. We adore God through His attributes. We adore God. Put on some music, right? Start worshiping God out loud, right? Start saying the attributes out loud. Take your mind off of what the concern is. Grab somebody. Hey, can you pray with me? I'm freaking out right now. When you have people that struggle with anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that, they need a calming person. They need somebody that would actually say, "Hey, let's pray. God can get you through this." Because at the end of the day, if anybody's ever been through a panic attack, or you've had a loved one that's gone through it, it's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of I feel helpless. But we're not. We have God. Paul's from prison shares his secret with us in Philippians chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. He says, "I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere in all things I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." As these things happen, what does Paul do? He looks to Christ. It's Christ that's going to get me through this. Now, David would have been a shepherd as a young man and tending the fields, and he's dealing with lions and other animals coming to attack the sheep, and a lot of stress trying to take care of the sheep. But one of the things that we need to realize is that God is greater than what I don't do or what I don't have in my life. David was content. And when we shall not, I shall not want, means that we are lacking to be without, that we have need. That's what it means in the Greek. Like I'm lacking something. God hasn't provided me this. I'm lacking this. And again, it goes back to, does your heart align with God's will? Because if they don't, that's part of the problem. Now, I'll be honest. Prime Day came and I did an invite. What a fool I was, thinking I was going to get a $99 TV. As I'm reading this chapter, I'm like, yep, you're learning this. So I did the invite. I was like, okay, were they going to send me the email? They probably had 2 TVs. And I thought to myself, I wonder how many people did what I did, because I thought, man, we got this one TV in our bedroom, and it's hot. It's hot. I mean, you feel the heat coming off of it. It's an old TV. It's not one that has a back to it, but it's hot. And it's one of the older ones. And I was like, man, it'd be nice to get a cooler TV, so not cool, but something that's not producing heat. And so yeah, I thought I was in need of it. I'm not. I don't ever get to watch TV anyway. Teresa always has a TV. I watch TV on a phone about that big. When I do get time to watch stuff, it's like I barely get to watch stuff. But that's my wife. That's her time, and I'm like, you watch what you want, sweetheart. You have the TV. I just don't like the heat in the room. I'm like, I just want to kill the heat. But when we think about the word in the Hebrew, I mean, and that's something I messed up. Because we are in the Old Testament, it's the word in the Hebrew that means that we are lacking, to be without, that we have need. And so, what are you lacking? What do you have need for? And does it align with God's will? See, when we think about the Good Shepherd, I know that the Good Shepherd is not lacking anything, right? The Good Shepherd is going to take care of my every need, my care, my management, my husbandry. As W. Philip Keller said, he says, but the second emphasis is that he's the idea of being utterly contented in the Good Shepherd's care, and consequently not craving or desiring anything more. Now, what he's talking about is, are you desiring another shepherd? Maybe you're not happy with the shepherd that you have, right? And that's kind of what he's getting at. It's like, are you desiring another shepherd? We have to have confidence as believers in God, but the Lord is my shepherd. And David dealt with many trials and tribulations as he had Saul try to kill him, and he had so many ups and downs that he had to go through, but the Lord was his shepherd all the way through it. The Lord was his shepherd. He was a man after God's own heart, as he has his father-in-law trying to kill him. Did he go at that moment, man, I thought you were my shepherd. I thought you were taking care of me. Did he go look for another shepherd? No. He stuck with God. In John 16:33 it says, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. He's overcome the world. You have peace in him. You have peace in the Good Shepherd. If you think about it in your house or your car that you drive or the money you save, or is it enough? Are you happy? Are you not content? Are there still want? If I just had this other thing, or if I just had this other position, I would be happy. No, you would be working even more. Right? And so that's the thing that we have to remind ourselves. Like, if God is not is a reminder that there are two biblical truths: is that your stuff isn't yours, right? It doesn't belong to you. Now that's hard for some people to wrap their heads around. But I earned the house. I bought the car. I got No, God's provided all of that for you. God's given you that. That's a biblical truth. But I got my degree. No, God put everything in place for you. See, if we have the proper perspective, a biblical worldview, we see that God has moved even in when we were non-believers. That God was moving, trying to bring you to Him, to come to know Him. The other biblical truth is that no one's going to take anything with them when they go. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 15, it says, "And as he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return, to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor, which he may carry away in his hand." As you came in this world with nothing, you will leave this world with nothing. And the only thing that's important for you to have when you leave this world is that you are a sheep, and that your shepherd is Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd. And they asked one of the, and I've told y'all this before, when John D. Rockefeller's accountant asked, "How much did John D. leave?" And the accountant said, "All of it." Didn't take not a penny with him. Doesn't matter how rich you are. You're not taking it with you. We have this idea, like I can tell you this from having a mom that envisioned, the second home, the summer home, right? And that was the goal. And she worked tirelessly to save money. And then they ended up deciding, hey, let's go ahead and get a RV. $700,000 RV. They had one of it. Did God want them to have it? They weren't following God at the time. And they drove all over the country. And then age caught up to them. They had to put the RV in storage. That $700,000 RV rotted from the inside out because it got water damage. And guess what? They're still paying on it. Because they had want for it. Did they really need it? No. When they look back at it now, they're like, man, what were we thinking? That's the idea here, is like, you're not taking that stuff with you. And she worked so hard, 6 days a week. We barely saw my mom. Because she was trying to make as much money, get the next position, get the next contract, get the next. And she was chasing this dream. And before you know it, the dream, you're 60 years old. And you look back at your life and the kids aren't in your life. Because we weren't in my mom's life anymore. The relationship she just didn't have time for us. It's a reminder that we can get so focused on a want that it creates destruction in every other area of your life. Your want should come from the Good Shepherd, because it should be from His will. Because if it's coming from Him, nothing but good is going to come out of it. It'll be a blessing. For us, I had a want to plant a church. And I don't know how many people told me how crazy that is, and I still got people telling me I'm crazy. But, it's the reality of it is, it's like my heart aligned with God's heart, His will, and I just stepped out in faith and we try to do it. And you know what? 6-7 days a week going at it, but it's every bit of it's worth it. Every bit of it's worth it. We're not leaving family members on the sideline, so to say. We still spend time with them. We still make it a priority. Like your service to God, and we're going to talk about that this weekend as we talk about a worthy walk. Because we're talking about your relationship and your walk with God. It starts in your home. Your worthy walk begins in your marriage. Your worthy walk begins with your family. Then your worthy walk enters the church. And then hopefully goes outside to the community. But if you're a mess at home, because that's where it's all supposed to go down. All of that stuff is your relationship with God is supposed to be, and He's like, you start serving in your home. Serving each other. Serving for the kids. Because you're being that example of Christ there. And it man, I tell you what, it turns down the noise of all the wants when you're doing what God's called you to do. You're not so focused on all the other noise. And there's a lot of noise out there. Well, that concludes today's broadcast of Sun, Salt, and Light Radio. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you'd like to submit a prayer request or get in contact with us to find out service times, you can do all of that at our website, as well as get our podcast at Spotify, Audible, TuneIn Radio. Pretty much wherever you can find a podcast, you can just type in Sun, Salt, and Light and you'll find it.